Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's deep dive with Optionality. Optionality is a community for people who are looking to explore, get better at, continuously improve their optionality driven life. And the way we are working is changing, and optionality is all about making that the now of work. It's no longer the future. May's theme for optionality has been about passion and purpose and priorities and how to set those priorities, especially when you're under pressure to make profit. And I am the alliteration queen and I am not embarrassed about it. So I was very excited to find ways to find words that started with 5 words that started with P. So once we set on this topic, I knew right away I wanted to invite my friend Claire Wasserman to join us to talk about this topic because I am a member of Claire's community and I am a subscriber to her premium newsletter. And I just find her to be the queen of providing digestible, actionable, exercises. And like, I'm not a fan of doing exercises. Let me just say, I'm really not even a fan of self-reflection. But Claire breaks it down so easily and so nicely. I've actually been doing it and I'm like, I need to get Claire into our deep dive to really dig into this topic. So Claire, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Optionality.
Thank you. Thank you. And, can I share what you shared with me last time we spoke? I was so flattered. I loved it. You printed out my newsletters with the exercises because I give a breakdown on like Monday through Sunday,
Look,
daily.
I have notes. I'm
Yeah.
making notes.
Yes. I mean, listen, you know that when you go from, digital to analog, if somebody is taking their precious ink, the ink from their printer and paper, I
Yes.
feel honored.
Yes, and I'm like, this is all very unlike me. So
Okay.
that that it's gotta be good. So before we dig in deep, give us a little bit about your background and how you came to be doing the work you're doing today.
Yeah. So long story short, gosh, I was working for a company called Working Not Working, which is kind of like a job board for freelancers, connecting them for work. And I was just getting this bird's eye view of the tension in hiring and feeling very pulled to help women in particular. I also had uncovered a lot of statistics around the wage and the leadership gap. This probably 10 years ago now. No one was talking about it in the way that they are today. And it
Right.
was shocking. And I thought, okay, something systemic and huge. How do I, as an individual, tackle that? Well, first step, let's talk about it. What is your relationship with work and money? And I just began to bring women together to literally discuss in an open forum hi, good to see you. Welcome to
Hi,
just
Jory.
the background on Ladies Get Paid. Yeah. And so just started to bring women together to have, open, candid conversations around what does work mean to them? What does money mean to them? Quickly saw that it is not just about the relationship to work or money. It's really the relationship to themselves, and that there was a lot to unpack. I was not qualified to unpack it with them. So I said, let's make a Slack group, have everyone continue to counsel each other in a peer to peer, never prescribing advice, but more so story sharing. I also would go and find certified coaches in all different realms and began to host workshops based on what I was seeing in the Slack group. And it just was growing and growing. I mean, now we've got over 55,000 people in that Slack group who've exchanged close to 4 million messages since
Wow.
then. And the common denominator was, and this is how you close the wage gap from an individual standpoint, negotiate your salary, right? And that was
Right.
when Get Paid was born. And what I was finding, professional development never quite integrated the personal in the way that I would do it. It was very bifurcated, right? You have your work self and your home self. Well, in these conversations, I was seeing, no, we are the same person trying to fit into different kind of spheres in our lives. We needed a more holistic approach, and quite frankly, just to make professional development more personal. So I went and I got a degree in financial psychology, so that I could integrate conversations around our feelings into things like, how do you ask for a raise? And women in the community would hear me speak and would ask me to come and, lead a session at their companies. And I began to speak at places like NASA and Harvard Business School. And I joke, it's all the places I would never get accepted as a student or an employee. But I somehow, again, got to be in this bird's eye view position. So I have seen a lot behind the curtain when it comes to how companies operate and their relationship with employees, and then how employees and people who want to become an employee. So I specialize in job seekers. How do you manage the inside, the outside, right? The inside worth, the outside worth, self worth, net worth. It's all connected. And I love doing it all. I think the best way to sum me up is what one client said about me, which is Claire does life coaching through the portal of work and money.
Got it. Got it. Well, we very much about work and money at Optionality, because the whole point, one of the points of Optionality is sort of to say it's no longer the most stable, risk-free approach to just get yourself a W-2 job. I mean, we're seeing it, especially in our areas of tech and media and all of that, and diversifying your career and diversifying your revenue streams and diversifying how you work, where you work, and how you get paid to work. I think is going to be it is now. It is not just the future. It's
No,
happening now.
no.
Um,
It all
so
starts,
our
it all starts, by the way, with how you see it, how you view yourself, how you view work, your relationship to it, and what it was and who you were no longer is. And it never was. That's the thing. We're always evolving. So I'm glad you're like kept calling it out, right? The
Yeah.
now. It's
Yeah.
always
Well,
about
I
the now.
think, you see a lot of people talk about how that, and I've seen it in action with close family members and friends. Their identity gets so wrapped up in what they do, which meant what job they had. And when that isn't there, it throws them for a real loop.
Yeah,
And
I've been there. I coach from
yeah,
a very, very deeply personal place. I know
yeah.
all of that too well.
Yeah. So let me start by asking you a question that actually Jory and I explored in the last conversationality. We had this conversation about what is the difference between passion and purpose. And
Mhm,
I felt there was a very distinctive difference
mhm,
in between those two words, and that figuring out what your purpose is and then applying it to what you're passionate about was sort
mhm.
of my frame for that. So I'm curious how you think about passion and purpose and how you distinguish between them.
Yeah, so I'll define both for you, but before I do, I want to just take them off of a pedestal. Just like I want to take money off a pedestal, I want to take work off a pedestal. We tend to look at it as I must find my purpose, like this very highly pressurized one thing. No, no, like let's just like unburden ourselves as best as we can. Life is already hard enough, so just want to start that. Here's how I define each of them. So passion to me is something that are it's an interest that you feel strongly about. So I am passionate about helping women. I'm passionate about a lot of things. Also, I
Mhm.
could be passionate about something this week and not so into it next week, right? It's a little more heartstring, fleeting, ephemeral.
Yeah.
Could be very deep, but it's an interest to me. Okay. To me, the other side, purpose, it is applying what you are innately great at with what you are intuitively driven by. Okay. So I'm going to just say that one more time and then break that down. So,
Yes,
okay,
please.
purpose. Yeah. So a purpose to me is applying what you are innately great at with what you are intuitively driven by. So let's define innately great at. So this is a strength of yours that just comes naturally, right? Like when I do public speaking, people go, "Oh my gosh, you're so good at that." Like wow, I get so nervous. And I'm like, this is the easiest thing to me. Not to say that it doesn't take practice, but it absolutely comes naturally. It's also learnable. Okay. But I am naturally great at it. Now, the question is, how do I apply it? Right. So I am innately great at communication in writing and speaking. All right. What am I intuitively driven by? So let's define intuition, I guess. I want to be clear. Intuition is not the same thing as instinct. An instinct is kind of like a fight or flight, right? It's a reaction, it's a biological wiring. So even anxiety, fear, right? These are more instincts. But intuition is always going to be a grounded, clear, calm, creative place. It is in therapy speak, it is self. It is who you are at yourself. Okay. Can be very difficult to get into tune with, by the way, because we are more in our instinct and our wiring and our day-to-day fears, right? Than we are actually in touch with our intuition unless you create a real practice around it. So, what an intuition might drive you to do might be, I don't know, related to your passion. Could be. So using my communication skills to help women because I'm passionate about that. So passion, that's where there is an overlap, right? When you're like, is there a difference? Yes. And also there's an integration of the two. So I would say purpose is, well, applying what you're innately great at to maybe what you're passionate about, possibly. But it depends, right? Again, everybody's always evolving. You may think, this is it. And then when you unpack it a little further, or you actually do it for a while or try to make money from it, maybe it sours. So these definitions, they're simplifying something that is really nuanced and evolving.
I think that's such a great point about evolving. In fact, later today, I see Eunice is in our comments, and I'm having a conversation with Eunice later today, actually, which we'll send out tomorrow, about taking a beginner's mindset to figuring out these things. And because I think so many people think they know what their passion and purpose is. And then at some point in their life that they're like, I'm not really charged up by this anymore. And now I don't know what to do. I always say that I think I was very lucky because the first thing I wanted to do with my life by the age of 25, I figured out, oh no, I was wrong. Like, I don't want this to be my one and only thing. And at that point, I had trained to do nothing else. I knew how to do nothing else. And I kind of had to go, I guess I could do anything because I'm trained for nothing.
Mm,
And in a way, I have always found that to be a liberating point in my life where, because I took a job in an industry I didn't know anything about and I learned about it. And then later when I got into tech, which was after I had a whole second career in this other industry, then I got into tech and I'm like, well, I know nothing about this and I guess I'm just going to learn about it.
mm,
And I knew I could do that from what had happened quite early in my career.
mhm,
But
mhm.
think about the people who've been doing something 20 years and then are like, this doesn't do it for me anymore.
Right, right. I think instead of I'm going to use terrible cliches, but like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, it's
Right.
not that it's not that thing anymore for you. It's let's get to the core. What is underneath it? Because first of all, you and I know we're going to talk later about ranging careers and paths and things, but you are the common denominator in everything that you do. Okay. So it's good to say
Mm,
whatever the path is, whatever you're pursuing, and maybe you just say, oh, it's not for me anymore, there's still something underneath it that if we can get to the core, you might be able to now say, how do I apply it to something else? You're not losing anything. You're not starting over. In some respects, you are, but there's still a through line, which is you. And if anyone's curious, well, how do I get to the core? Well, deep therapy, yes. And also a nice little exercise, which you've seen, I'm sure, in many of my newsletters here, is it's called the downward arrow technique, right? It comes from cognitive behavioral therapy. It's actually pretty simple. Whatever answer you come up with when you're asking yourself, like, why do I do this? Do I want to do this? Then go, why does this matter? And then you say, this matters to me because, like, why are you passionate about helping women? Why do you want it? And the more you ask yourself, why does this matter to me? The closer you'll get to probably that core value that's driving you in some way. And then you say, well, where can I apply this in an area that I'm going to have more growth, more interest, curiosity, money, right? The ceiling will be higher. But there is always a ceiling somewhere, right? Even self-constructed ceilings.
yeah,
So
yeah.
expect that you will be frustrated at some point. That's good. That means it's time to grow. So I
Mm.
hope nobody's hearing this going, oh no, this is a problem. It's like, no, no, no. These are all signals to explore deeper.
Oh, I like that. Because you hear the cliche is, oh, these are not problems, these are opportunities. These are not problems, these are challenges. But I like this. These are signals.
Yeah.
Um, I
It's an
think you
AI.
wrote about. Did you write about that somewhat recently in one of the newsletters? I feel like,
Probably, to
yeah.
prepare for this talk, I like went back to some of my old newsletters and I was like, this is too much. I write too much. So I was like, I was overwhelmed by my own advice. So I was like, let's just go with the flow.
Um, yeah, that's really. I love that. I always, I kind of boiled down. Sometimes the internet can help you boil things down because you have to communicate on most social platforms. When Twitter first came out, one of the things that I actually found very fun about it was trying to see how much meaning could I get into
Mhm.
140
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
I found that to be a fun little puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And still, whether you're still on X or on Blue Sky or on Threads, they all have character counts that make you really think hard about how to
Mhm.
boil something down.
Yeah.
And few years ago, I kind of boiled down. when I was when I was talking a lot about politics online and I found myself going down rabbit holes, I'm like, wait a second. Why am I going down this rabbit hole with a stranger on the internet? And
Mhm.
I came up with this little guiding principle I would repeat, which is I'm here to be helpful, not
Mhm.
argue with strangers on the internet.
Mhm.
Because my focus is always on data and talking
Mhm.
about media narrative and like things I'm trying to be like, that's my goal is to try to be helpful and just illuminate some things or
Mhm.
do the research and find some data. And um, I kind of realized that being helpful is actually my purpose.
Yeah.
I want to be helpful.
Yes.
Um, and so in this conversation Jory and I had about passion versus purpose, I was like, my purpose is to be helpful, but I don't
Mhm.
want to be helpful to just anyone or everything. Like
Right.
I have passionate areas of passion, and that's where I want to direct my help.
Yes.
Those are the people I want to help, the founders I want to help, the
Right.
companies I want to help, whatever it is. And part of that was kind of seeing this, kind of understanding not just what I can do,
Mhm.
I can do a lot of different things, but what really makes me feel fulfilled about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's
Well,
these
actually, sorry to I always jump in because I
yeah,
hear a thing and I'm like, "Ah, I wanna pull that thread further."
yeah,
So the other important thing in all this is how do you wanna feel your impact, which is what you basically just said. That's so important because you could be doing, applying the skills that you're innately great at to helping people or causes that are you're passionate about, and then you still feel lost. This was me actually a few years
mm,
ago. I was like, what is going on? Why am I? And my kind of like lost was manifesting as unmotivated, a lot of procrastination, a lot of
mm,
napping. And what I realized was I was not feeling my impact anymore because I went from all in person, we had 1,000-person conference, to the pandemic. Everything was digital. And quite frankly, doing things on Zoom where I'm the one everybody's looking at and I don't see any of you, even getting emails from people telling me, "Oh, you've changed my life." I couldn't feel that impact. That was an aha moment for me. It meant moving forward, I have to integrate into it doesn't have to be every day, but let's just say every week where I'm meeting with people, while I'm doing a coaching practice again. And I started to do free coaching for people in exchange for them allowing me to record the audio and put it on as a podcast because and I know we're going to talk about money. What you're doing, it can't just be, I mean, it could just be self-fulfilling, but you've got to make sure it's also leading somewhere.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you want to make it part of your, you know, bank account.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because, it's not that I don't deny the power of in real life engagement, and, yeah, as you know, Blogger had
Mhm.
many and huge events, but we are different. People are different, that's the thing. You recognize that's something you need weekly or it sucks away at your motivation.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm exactly the same that
Yeah.
way. I think I was pretty, I was pretty easy breezy during the pandemic. I'm like, oh, I get to be home with my cats, and I like Zoom, I like email,
Yeah.
I like all those things. So, and I think, but you're bringing up. The point is, you're bringing up a key point about knowing yourself, asking
Yeah.
yourself, why does this matter? Why is this happening? Because your answer will be different from my answer, will be different from Eunice's answer or Helen's answer, right? So we all have to do that. No one else can do it for us, although people can help us, dig through it.
Yeah, and also it's not an either or. So I
Ah,
really love Zoom. I love being home with my cat as well. Like I don't want to be in person like I was. It was
yeah,
energy draining ultimately.
yeah,
So at first I went the opposite where I was like, this is great. And I'm like, wait a minute, I need some integration of this into my life. So then the
yeah.
next question goes, well, what role does this play? And literally how much of my focus am I going to allocate to this? And maybe it should not be 50% or 100%. It should be like 20%. And the best way to figure this stuff out, by the way, is every night ask yourself, where did my energy go and where did it come? So, energy in and energy out, and start to write down the details, the triggers leading up to this experience, whatever it is. That's the only way you're going to find patterns.
Mm.
Um, and then create, as I like to do, little experiments to either, give me some relief and or double down on whatever the thing is. But I quite frankly, I really could not understand any of this about myself until I started tracking end of the day, energy in, energy out.
That's so interesting, and I think something I would have to really I did it a little bit for one of your exercises, and I
Mhm.
did kind of discover um, that I needed more like one-on-one. It didn't
Mhm.
have to be in real life,
You
but
see? Yep.
it had to be at some point during the week. I had to talk to people one-on-one,
Mhm.
because that I found more energizing than, all group stuff all the time,
Right.
and, I don't know if I would have known that about
Yeah.
myself. That's true,
Mhm.
actually. So I'm gonna in all the I feel like LinkedIn is kind of drowning in thought leadership sometimes, but and thought leadership that will share 2 exactly opposing thoughts, which different
Mhm.
groups of people feel passionately about. So here are 2 kind of cliche, you see them a lot. There are the people, and this has been said for decades and decades, do what
Mhm.
you love and the money will follow,
Yeah.
or you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm like, it's
Mhm.
work. Like,
Yeah.
come on now. And then there's the other school of thought, which is, hey, if you do something you're good at and people compensate you for and value you at, you'll love it because it's great we like to feel competent. We like to feel compensated. Uh, provided it's a spectrum, let's say,
Mhm.
instead of 2 binary things. How do you think about these opposite ends of the spectrum? What's your
Yeah.
thought on it?
Yeah, my grandfather was one of those people who said, "Do what you love, the money will follow," which, listen, it's idealistic, it's privileged, and he had an architecture practice, and that worked for him.
Mm,
He also was not, it was 1950s. He wasn't raising a kid, So
yeah.
listen, it's really about, again, always getting to the core of who you are, what do you value, and how that's changing, and then or how that's evolving, and how you can change accordingly. Um, I can say I've done things that I absolutely love, passionate about, purpose driven. Money ain't coming. Like that's I mean, I'm unfortunately in the, a social good space, and I keep believing in that you can do well and do good, meaning you can make a lot of money while helping a lot of people. I've seen some coaches do that. It appears to be, Marie Forleo, Brandon Bouchard, Tony Robbins. I mean, they're not Mel Robbins, like they're not without issues, I'm sure. I haven't quite cracked that code. And so then the problem is you do what you love and you're great at and you're helping people and the money's not coming. Well then what? Well, you can't feed your family and also maybe you start to resent the thing that you loved before. And that's the saddest
Mm.
part. That's the saddest part. So, I think it's just looking at your life like it's a big old pie. There's all different pushes and pulls of things you need to be focusing on, things that are important. They're shifting in the seasons. I just had children, I had twins I would say 2 months ago, absolutely not 2 months ago, 16 months ago. And so I think the better question is what's most important now and almost ranking it like growth, which by the way, growth in what? Skills, experiences, exposure, money,
Nobody
spiritual
brings up
practice,
growth. And
and then going,
yeah.
theoretically, you'd like to be growing in all these different ways. If that's not possible now for your job, okay, well, how are you going to fulfill or work towards fulfilling those other things? So I think it's more, again, just looking at these tons of buckets or like puzzle pieces, right? You can arrange them in all different ways. Just because something isn't making you money from your day job doesn't mean you don't do it at all. No, my God, you need to fill your cup just as much as you need to fill your bank account. But where is your attention and focus going in a given week? And I'm going to repeat what I said before. Maybe it's 25%. So you do sort of have to get a bit granular here as you look at all the buckets you want to fill. Where and how will you do that in this season of your life? And then having a reflection practice where, okay, I'm starting to outgrow something. Things are starting to not feel right. I'm starting to get a little burnt out. What can change in that kind of ratio of where you're putting your focus?
Yeah, and by the way, folks, I'm going to get to asking Claire some of her specific exercises, like she mentioned the energy in and energy out. But I still have a couple more questions just to set the context of where you're coming from and the philosophy. So it's interesting you mentioned ranking because my next question is kind of detailed. So I'm actually going to make sure I not miss anything. So in a former deep dive that we did, Jory and I did with Guy Kawasaki, he talked about this term, which is also being used more frequently, which is ikigai, right? And it's this concept. The traditional definition talks about 4 things. Look for the intersection of what you love, which they consider your passion, what the world needs, your mission, what you're good at, your vocation, and what you can get paid for, your profession.
Mhm.
And it's a very detailed, interesting thing. Okay. So I appreciate that. But what he said that was so interesting is like he believes that you may not be good at it yet, but you're compelled to keep trying. You may
Mhm.
not make money at it yet, but you're compelled to keep figuring it out. And he says that's what makes something your ikigai. Even if it doesn't fulfill all four of those things, you still believe in that path. And you also mentioned talking about growth. And of course, there's revenue growth and business growth, but personal growth,
Mhm.
learning, and like ikigai doesn't really capture this concept of what keeps you constantly having something new to reach for. And Eunice says in the comments, we don't have to monetize all the things we love. And we are a culture that is kind of turning it into something like that. So when you hear this very detailed ikigai conversation, and you're talking about applying a ratio and like
Mhm.
figuring out how to do that, um, first give me like the conceptually how you think about that ikigai
Mhm.
concept and this idea that it doesn't have to reflect, you being at 11 on all
Mhm.
four of those things
Right.
at once, but that you are compelled to try and get there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm I'm constantly looking for problems, which is probably why I have high anxiety. But when you're talking about ikigai, I already see problems with this just in
Okay.
general, which is you're like, okay, pick what you love, what you're good at, and I'm going, but I love many things. I'm
Mm,
pretty good at a lot of things. Like, how do you choose, right?
right.
So the issue I find in these sort of quote formulas, and I know I even use the word like ratios, like so I'm speaking that language too, I admit, is it makes I think a lot of people feel like there's this one definition and or I do this, I do this, I do this equals happiness or something. No. It's I think overly simplified and in some ways actually a little complicated, if that makes sense. So I would say just to distill all of this down, if you're somebody who's searching for that intersection in some way, maybe the best question to ask yourself is it's two questions. It's kind of the same one, but in two different ways. What problems do you like to solve? And
Okay.
that's it. So the two parts of it is what is maybe an overall problem that you want to solve? So that could sound a bit mission driven, I admit, but it could be things like, personal finances is complicated. It really bothers me that that's happening. I'd like to solve that. Or in my case, it was the wage gap, right?
Hmm.
Um, you talked about being a helper, right? That's a problem
Yeah.
solver. Now you
Right.
distill it to the micro. All right, how does that manifest in the day to day? What are you actually doing to solve these problems? And based on that, you go, all right, which am I innately good at or great at of those problems? Because there's probably things that you do that maybe you're innately great at, they don't light you up, or you do them to solve the larger problem, but they're really tedious and you wish you had a virtual assistant to outsource it, right? So you're going to have all those things in the mix. Nothing's ever perfect, but just at least be clear as best as you can. Overarching problem you might want to solve. So that's directional. Maybe that's purpose, right? And then that day to day, what problems you want to solve. And then you go, what will the market bear? That's actually a little more simpler. Who the fuck is hiring? Like, is anyone hiring for this right now? And you might find yourself in a position where you go, no, this market is imploding. There are no jobs. Like, this is a industry that is confused and doesn't know yet where I fit in this way. But is it not transferable? Right? The problems you solve, for
Mm,
who you solve it, maybe we need to look at something totally different. But the very act of solving the problem, that I'm sure is transferable. It's got to be. I mean, there's only so many skill sets we all have here, right? Or core
right.
strength.
Right.
So I say all this. I hope that's a good starting point to not get caught up in the tons of like Venn diagrams of the ikigai.
Yeah, well, I was saying in the comments that I feel like if you read what the Japanese definition is of ikigai, it's much simpler. It's like 6 words. I didn't look it up beforehand and I should have, but it's like a 7 word phrase. And then we kind of muck it up with let's expand it and turn it into this, like you said, a complicated Venn diagram.
Mhm.
And I think we're seeing in the comments that people are very much feeling they're multi-passionate, they're
Mhm.
multi-talented, they don't know how to choose and don't want to be told to choose. But
Don't.
let me get to like the first. I've seen you work in you do these monthly with your premium subscribers, you do these monthly convenings. And I've seen you work with people and I've seen you provide exercises around looking at the expanse of your career and figuring out how to connect the dots. How do
Mhm.
you find that through line? How do you, and I know Helen was saying that that's an area of focus for her in the comments as well, finding the through line even through what she calls a kaleidoscope career.
Yeah, I
Which
love that. Oh, what a
yeah,
great you could use that on your LinkedIn if you're not. That's
she is.
great about
She definitely is. Um, So how first of all, what is like I've had Helen argues with my use of the term multiple careers, like it's all one career
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
and I'm multiple industries, let me say that.
Okay. Yep.
So, but some of them by now I haven't been in the commodities industry for 20 years, right? More than 20 years. So, how far back should I go? What is the purpose behind this finding the common threads or connecting these dots? And how far back do you go with that? And
Mhm.
then what is like the first exercise you give people to start doing that work of extracting? What are you looking for people to
Right.
extract?
Yeah. So before I answer that, I just want to acknowledge anybody who's feeling like I don't want to have to choose or whatever. Just go back to the analogy of all the things you're interested in. These are puzzle pieces,
Yeah.
and you can configure them in many different ways. And so maybe based off of what's most important to you in this season of your life. So that's also a very loaded question, right? How do you know what's most important to you? We can talk about that. So I always want to mention whenever I throw something out there, that doesn't mean, and you're like, oh shit, how do I do that? There's layers. Most important in your life, where does it fit in? So the thing that you're really great at, that you are driven to do, look at how much money you can make from it. And if it's not that much, maybe that is a side project, right? Or, when Guy was saying it might not be something you're that great at. Awesome. This is a practice that you're going to have. Like you're going to, maybe are you going to take lessons, right? So it's something you're building again on the side. So it's just a matter of not doing it or not doing it. It's just where does it fit into your life? But to answer this question of connecting the dots and where do you begin? Um, Childhood. So the joke here is
Okay.
that ladies get paid and also, go to therapy. Here's the best thing about dissecting childhood is it was largely before socialization. I mean, listen, socialization hit you starting at age 2 or 3, okay? So, and we don't really have memories before that. So it's very difficult to truly find your core essence before people told you you should or should not do something or be somebody, okay? But we want to get as close to the beginning as possible when it was new and you had that, well, you said it, beginner's mindset, right? To everything. And you were playful, right? You weren't afraid of what people thought about you. And by the way, you didn't then internalize all of those fears. We understand ourselves in relation to others. We are social beings. Well, for better or worse, it can help you survive in a tribe, but it's not going to necessarily help you know yourself at your core essence, again, without it being sort of refracted mirror, shards of glass from your, I don't know, mother or something, right? So we want to get close to that and just say, what are the memories I have where I felt truly alive? And then note if you're starting to judge any of those memories. Like this, you might say, I loved playing with paper dolls. And a judgment that might come in is, well, what does that mean? Like, I'm going to be a fashion designer? But no, we're not putting any titles on it. Do not let yourself jump ahead. Okay. Observe it, validate it. I hear you. Love it. Thanks for watching out for me. Put that to the side. Do your best to try to train yourself to, analyze these things as objectively as possible. And if you need help, with a coach or therapist, I highly recommend it. And then we look at the elements. Okay. What is at, again, the core of the act of playing with paper dolls? This, and I'm using that example because it really helped me see what is most important for me to be doing in my life. Maybe no surprise that I got my start in my entire career. It was actually producing a film. Okay. Because I love telling stories. That's why the public speaking. It's telling stories. It's interest in people, having people see each other in themselves, connecting, right? It all, when I look back at everything, I go, oh my God, it totally makes sense. And it all comes from there. Okay. But You want to jump ahead to, let's say, the last 15 years, or we could say decade. These are the categories. I'm going to recite them out loud. What did you do? So the experience that you had, okay, and write out details, devil's in the details. How you did it, so skills and strengths, where you did it, the environment, and not just tech company. No, what's the everyday environment? And then what did you learn about yourself, the industry, the process of doing the work, about people, right? These are all your puzzle pieces. And then this is where, again, it helps to work with someone else, like a coach. I'm
Can
taking
you
a few more
repeat?
clients.
Okay,
Yep.
what did you do?
So what did you do? So what were the experiences that you were having? So this is more about network exposure. Could also be like who you were uh I'll also say like who you were doing it for, maybe is also important. Although you could also put that in the environment. So maybe we'll just stick to what did you do, like the experiences that you major experiences that you had. How you did it is just taking that the next layer. So, all right, all of these experiences I had, what were the strengths and skills that I was using during that time? All kinds. Where did you do it? So, what was the environment? That includes, right, who did you do it for? So it could be, the mission of the company or whatever. But also, was it with people in person, behind a computer? Were you largely autonomous, team? Okay. What did you learn? And then all the things you learned about yourself, about the job, about the industry, the process of work. And then you look at those puzzle pieces and you go, where am I drawn to out of this? And sometimes it's hard to start with the positive. It's actually in many ways easier to say, well, what do I don't want first? So based off of all those puzzle pieces, let's put an X through. I hated, I was, I was not autonomous. Like I was, I desperately desire that actually, whatever it is. I didn't feel like I had freedom. So you start to write out kind of the deal breakers out of all of this. And then you're left with less puzzle pieces. Good. Now we have to figure out how do we rearrange them in different ways. And that might be everything from what are you currently experiencing right now that you want to do more of? Or what are you currently desiring more of but don't have in your life? How do we start that in a small way? Consistency. So whether it's something you can do at your current job or outside of work. Okay. So it's not saying, all right, I'm now completely starting over, new career, applying for new jobs. Like that's a huge monumental task. It's really more about integrating every day as best as you can practices, experiences that get you back in that place, right? Of feeling those things that you felt as you were employing those skills, being in that environment. This all comes down to feelings. This is something I've talked about, I know, in my newsletter. What do you desire to feel in your life? Actually, is another place you could begin because our experience of life is not what you say it is. It's how you feel about what it is, right? Because I can say I'm a best-selling author, spoke at NASA. How do I feel about my life right now? It's complicated. I feel complicated about my life, right? So it's that is the reality, is your emotions.
Yeah.
So if we could get intentional about what do we want to feel, which by the way, you may have a long list, which this goes back to a theme I keep talking about. You're gonna have lots of things. Great. Most important, top three. Top three feelings. If you do not feel these, you will, I don't know, feel like you're overwhelmed, drowning, whatever. Numb. Pick the opposite word of what it is that you want to feel. Now let's say, all right, out of all those puzzle pieces that we just laid out, experience, skills, strengths, environment, etc., which of these gets you to have those feelings faster? And then you may go, oh shit, some of these things actually block me from these feelings, right?
Mm,
Or awesome, I love being a workaholic because this is the thing. I'm a big workaholic, but like that doesn't work with my family. So then you go, all right, how do I balance this thing? And that's where I go back to those ratios. Okay, what place does this have in my life? Is this again my full-on money-making thing? Is it my side thing? Is it my side thing? Is it not even anything, but I'm just connecting with people who love this, right? Just being in a community of shared interest and values. That's going to be enough. So it's again, I'm giving a rubric to follow, but it is deeply personal. and we aren't the most reliable narrators of our own lives. This is where it's
Mm.
very important, I think, to seek outside perspective. It's just so hard to see you're just too close to yourself.
Yeah, I noticed Joanna is in the comments, and we have a working group at Optionality that we have done 2 cohorts of around personal. We call it personal positioning, like when you're trying to newly articulate who you are now, right?
Mhm.
And she had an exercise that she had us do, which I'm going to try and remember, which was to ask a couple of close colleagues, people who had really worked with you, to say differentiating things that were great about you. But the one that caught us up not just in asking people for it, but I was asked by some of the people to provide it, and I was caught up in trying to answer it, which was, what is a positive attribute you would not apply to me? And I felt all kind of feelings about telling someone something I wouldn't say about them, which is
Yeah.
funny. Um, but also, it's just it was really, anything like that that triggers your brain to like come at a problem or a question from a different angle. Um, and so when you were saying we're not the most reliable narrators of our own, when
Mhm.
you're talking about our skills, our strengths, the environment, what we did, what we're great at, all this stuff, we're not always the best narrators. And
Mhm.
asking people, you'll get feedback that you probably 2 positive words that describe you and 1 positive word that does not describe you. Yes, that is much more simply, that is exactly a more efficiently, simply put way. I was rambling there. Thank you, Joanna. Um, asking people, third parties, for this kind of contribution, I did find it useful. It just kind of recenters you. Like, you let
Mhm.
all these voices in your head that, I think, to your point, probably come from deeply things we learned when we were too
Mhm.
young to
Yeah.
push back on them. But
Yeah.
now they feel like they're coming from inside, but they're really
Mhm.
external. They come from
Yeah.
external sources.
Yeah.
You let those take over sometimes, and you forget who you are,
Yeah.
or you forget who you've been. And so getting those outside perspectives, I have found, is really helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, listen, I was married to a man and didn't come out till I was 30. So, I understand what it's like to be deeply disconnected from yourself. Here's the thing though, sometimes when you ask for perspective and feedback from somebody else, you forget that they're can only see the world through their own lens. So it's all heavily filtered by their own biases. And actually, we tend to the things that bother us and other people oftentimes are unresolved baggage that we have within ourselves. So something else to think about, because I know I'm like, ask someone else, get perspective. I said coach and therapist. Okay. So trained people. Okay. But also, you could just be around people who inspire you, whether it's in person, digital, reading a book. That's how I created Ladies Get Paid, and Ladies Get Paid helped me come out because I was surrounded by amazing women. When I'm in that environment, I'm going, oh, this is when I feel my best self. So another way of getting perspective doesn't necessarily mean asking anyone directly, because that may
mm,
be biased, but just put yourself in situations that make you feel more intuitively aligned. And you're going to notice that within your body. Am I hotter, colder, contracting, expanding? Well, that of course means you have to start to get in tune with your body, which many of us are not.
yes. Well, yes, that is a whole other
Well,
thing. Um, so another thing you can connect the dots on, of course, and you mentioned it briefly. Ooh, Eunice, we see people as we are, not as they are. Ooh.
yeah, yeah. You're guys, like it is crazy when you start to see. I highly recommend everybody watch Couples Therapy. Uh, it's a really good show. You absolutely see people projecting. And this woman last night in the episode, she was like berating her husband over something, and then had this aha moment. Realized she goes, "Oh wait, that's what I'm mad about at myself." I'm like, yeah,
Mm,
that's constant interactions like that day to day. It's fascinating.
yeah. So I have a question about part of the common threads connecting the dots that you talk about doing is, what is the stuff you really don't like, or really doesn't feel fulfilling, or really
Mhm.
um and it's a tough market out there. And I know you know that, and I know that, and we all know that. And I feel like a lot of people don't really want to hear, oh, figure out what you don't like and make sure you don't have to do that, because they're like, oh, that'd be awesome, but I have a mortgage, I have rent or whatever. So how do you, and by the way, I think in any gig you ever have, you're doing some stuff that is just, you got to do it, but it's not the
Mhm,
thing that, as you say, fills your cup. So
mhm,
how do you manage doing the things you don't really like to do and you know aren't that fulfilling to you? Where do you know where to draw the line between, look, every job has something you do that you don't really got to, love to do, and knowing, oh, this is really violating
mhm.
my this goes too far. This is
Yeah.
me doing something that violates who I am or my values or what I really feel comfortable. Like how do you think about that? And especially in the context of a tough job market.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, again, starting with those building blocks that I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation of like, how do you want to feel? Top three adjectives, ways in which you want to grow, top three that are most important. Okay. And then you say, what do I, if I were to gain these, what might I have to give up? It's kind of like a two-column thing, right? So with every choice, there is a consequence. There's a sacrifice, right? Like I am sitting here with you and not sleeping, which I'm very tired and I would like to sleep, right? Or not being with my kids. Like I'm giving up something. But what I'm getting in return, I have determined is beneficial, outweighs that in this experience, in this moment, in this day. So you have to also figure that out when you might not know yet. Hopefully we've all learned to see signals of these red flags of jobs that are, if they say things like, I don't know, we're a family here, that probably means it's a lot of guilt tripping, you're overworking, etc. So like, learn to hopefully find those red flags before you walk into the situation. Learn to get in tune with catching the signals before they really bite you in the butt. And then you go, all right, is this outweighing what I'm getting out of it? Like if I'm getting a good paycheck or a decent paycheck and I desperately need it, and I'm giving a little bit away of my soul, all right, well then not that you have to be okay with it, but then how am I going to regain aspects of myself here, right? I might say, okay, let's make sure that you have an awesome, I call it a secret project, so when you're sitting in the meeting and you're like so annoyed at what's going on, you can maybe be daydreaming or at least remind yourself, but I have that secret, screenplay I'm writing, right? And even if you only work on it for 10 minutes, just like it is a lifeline you can remember. And then probably need to get you out of that job, right? If it's starting to weigh more heavily on you, that you're sacrificing even more things. You can't sleep at night, etc. So it's like how does the ratio? How is your sacrifice impacting the ratio?
I think that's a key thing I'm really taking away from this conversation
Yeah.
is this idea that it's not, and I know this about life in general, but it's not binary, right? It's not, it's either good for you or bad for you. It's how good is it for you versus how bad is it for you, and which is more important, and what is the bad thing it triggers? Is it boredom might be different than feeling like you're actually violating your stated
Correct.
values. Boredom or annoyance or whatever is a different story than toxicity.
Yes.
Inability to grow, you're not really learning. I hear people say that, that's often a reason people want to explore. I'm not really learning, I'm not really growing, I don't want really have advancement, is really different from saying I'm being exploited, I'm being taken advantage
Totally.
of. There are different layers of bad and good,
Yeah.
and like this idea of the ratio, and what outweighs which outweighs what. um
And also,
so
by the way, like, you can ask yourself, like, again, why does this matter? And then how do I, so whatever the core thing that you get to, it's like, all right, there are so many things out of my control. What is actually within my agency to do? And how can I start doing it in the smallest, most sustainable way possible? Because
yeah.
I think we oftentimes focus on things that are out of our control and we forget about the things that are. And
Mm,
that's why we feel so stuck. Or we think we
yeah.
have to wait till we get the new job, or we have to change so many things in order to get the feeling that we desire. And that's just not true. So it might also be helpful to look at in a given week, right? I love the daily assessments at the end of the day, right? Energy in, energy out. But you also want to see within a given week and within a given month, how do these ratios play out? Because you could have had a terrible day, but
Mm,
it's actually an okay week. Or it's like, I don't know,
mm,
I ate an entire piece of, I don't know, like a piece of cake the other day, right? Okay, but so it's too much in one day. But in a given week, listen, I was probably fine if I'm
yeah.
cognizant of my sugar intake after that, right? So it's kind of like you go in and you're at like the lens of a camera, in and out, in and out. And it's interesting you started this conversation with me today kind of defiantly saying definitively saying or defiantly saying I don't like self-reflection normally. It's an imperative part of this process.
I know.
I have a little Shresher
Well,
cat grin. I like
what?
I feel like I just had a little Shresher cat grin. I was like, hee hee. Because also anything that you're resisting means there's so much there, right? You mentioned you like that kind of idea or symbolism of like a signal. That is a signal to me.
Yeah.
Anywhere there's resistance, I'm like, that's fire, right? That's like just like the fuel to like move forward in a direction. If you are going, put on the brakes, that's also some energy coming out there too. So
Yeah.
definitely worth digging into it.
Yes, thank you. You're right. I want to ask you about when Jory and I were in our conversationality from that introduced this theme. We were kind of riffing on like, how is my passion or purpose a benefit to
Hmm.
someone who might hire me either as a coach or a consultant or an employee? How can you position like
Hmm.
because on the one hand, I kind of feel like employers, they don't care about your passion. They don't care about your purpose. They're like, they have a job they want to get done. They have a problem they want solved. But on the other hand, if you can position that it would fit to your passion and purpose to help solve their problem,
Yes.
I feel
Yes.
like what could be better than that, than having someone who is passionate about solving your problem. So how do you think about talking about passion and purpose in the situation where you're in a pitch or you're in a job interview or you're in how do you think you can position it as a plus in an
Yeah.
interview
Yeah.
situation like that?
Yeah. Listen, I have a whole program called the LLC of Me where I like for job seekers to think of themselves, or not just job seekers, any employee, to think of yourself actually as a business. And you're not asking for a job or asking for a raise. You are making a case, you're making a pitch for investment, right? Saying if you invest in me, you will get a return on your investment. It's all about solving problems, as you said. So the awesome thing about passion or doing things outside of work, it demonstrates who you are as a human being in many ways, more so than your job. The thing you need to do though, with anything that comes out of your mouth in a job interview for sure, is make the connection to how do they benefit from your passion. So
Right.
take the next step of asking yourself, all right, in doing this thing, what did I grow? What did I learn? What did I, and then how does that relate to the problems they need me to solve? And then take that even a next step further with like business ROI. So it could be, I was coaching someone yesterday. She's a certified yoga instructor on the side, right? Well, listen, she's applying to wellness companies. So there's clearly a connection there. But to just simply say, I also have a certification in yoga and then move on doesn't connect the dots for them. We need to be way more articulate and obvious about, I did this and here's why it helps you. So there's probably an in between sentence of what I learned in doing that. I mean, it takes a immense amount of work to get certified, right? As this yoga instructor, it demonstrates commitment and all these other things. If you're unsure of how to connect the dots or what to say, good news is the cheat sheet is in the job description. It's all there.
Yeah,
Integrate
yeah,
their
yeah.
words, right? So integrate their words into your story, and you got
Mm,
it.
interesting. Okay. So you have so many ways that people can engage with you and take advantage of your wisdom in an ongoing basis, as I do as a subscriber. So lay out the different things you're doing right now and how people can find you. And then after this, I'll share this in like the show notes,
Yeah.
all the links.
Awesome. Yeah, just one link is fine. It's coachmeclaire.com because we're redoing the Ladies Get Paid site.
Okay.
So you go there, you can see my free newsletter that comes every week. I need to send that shortly after I have my responsibility with my children. Okay, so Coach Me Claire. And the things that you're going to find on there besides my newsletter include something called, like I said, the LLC of Me, but that's connected to a monthly group coaching experience called the Paid Pod. So for job seekers, what I do is, if you're interested in joining, I ask you 10 questions. However you respond to those questions, I formulate approximately 100-page job search strategy. I write all of your materials, all your application materials. I give you sample LinkedIn posts. I rewrite your whole LinkedIn. I literally do everything for you. But you can also meet in a small group setting during whatever month you sign up, because you inevitably will have questions. I also want to do interview role play with you. That's very important. I also have a couple of other tools, like a video course, Get Hired dashboard, a to done tracker, which helps you be productive. just all the things I was seeing in these coaching experiences I was having. I would assign quote homework and they would have a hard time following through. So I was like, you need a way to follow through on whatever the thing is. I also do have a paid newsletter. I'm redoing it on Substack actually. So I would say free newsletter, best place to start, coachmeclaire.com. And also I have some capacity for private clients too. So if anything I said resonated with you all, that's a great, you also get free access to all my programs and tools if you sign on and do a package with me. So I always do a
And you
20-minute free session as well to
yeah,
just make sure we're a good fit.
and you have a new YouTube show too, don't you?
Oh yes, that is the latest episode is out today. It's called Higher Ground, which is
Hire spelled HIRE.
yes, but I like the double entendre as well.
Yes, me too.
And yeah, it's for job seekers. I basically say, it gives you hope and help behind the headlines.
Yes,
Because
excellent.
I like an alliteration too.
Excellent. I found my people. So, Claire, thank you so much for your generosity of time and wisdom. Like I said, I just find the way you make things into digestible, actionable things I can do has overcome my resistance to self reflection. And as you can see, I printed it out and I make notes. It just really resonates with me. And so I really appreciate you coming and sharing all of this with the optionality community. And go check out Claire. She's awesome and doing a lot of really great stuff to help you get to where you want to go. So thanks, everybody, and join us next time. Oh, and there's her book, Ladies Get Paid.
There we go. Yep. Ladies get paid at the beginning of the existential crisis I had afterwards. So there you go. All right.
Awesome.
Super appreciate you. Really. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk
Of
about some of my
course.
favorite.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.